The Gym Key. Chapter 1. The First Step. The automatic doors of the fitness center slid open with a hum, letting out a burst of cool, conditioned air that carried the mingled scents of rubber mats, disinfectant, and faint traces of protein shakes. Maya lingered on the threshold, tightening her grip on her new water bottle. Her palms were clammy, her pulse faster than it had been during the walk from her apartment. Through the glass windows, the gym looked like a different universe. Bodies were in motion everywhere. Legs pounding on treadmills, arms hoisting iron plates, a fitness class clapping to the rhythm of loud pop music. "Come on, just step in," she whispered to herself, shifting her weight from one sneaker to the other. For weeks, she had argued with herself. "I'll go tomorrow. Maybe next month. When I'm fitter already." But tomorrow had stretched into months of excuses. Until one morning, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, tired eyes, slumped shoulders, she had decided enough was enough. She took a deep breath and crossed the threshold. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss more eerie and fascinating tales. Chapter 2. The Weight of Insecurity. Maya's first visit was chaos. The machines looked like contraptions from a sci-fi film. She climbed onto a stationary bike and pedaled furiously for 5 minutes before realizing she hadn't even turned it on. Nearby, a man in a tank top curled dumbbells twice the size of her head with casual ease. She reached for the smallest weights, pink, 2 pounds each, and felt ridiculous. When she tried to put them back, one slipped, clanging loudly against the rack. A few people looked up. Her cheeks flamed. She shuffled to the corner, wishing she could melt into the floor. She caught sight of herself in the mirror. Hair tied awkwardly, form unsure, movements clumsy. Compared to the toned, confident gym-goers around her, she felt like a fraud. "I don't belong here," she whispered. But as she left that day, sweaty and embarrassed, she remembered the promise she had made. "I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm here to change myself." Chapter 3. Small Victories. The second week, things felt different. She learned how to adjust the treadmill's buttons. She discovered she could walk briskly for 10 minutes without gasping. One evening, she braved a short jog. At first, every step was a battle. Her lungs burned, her legs wobbled. But when the timer hit 1 mile, she almost burst into tears. She had done it, something she hadn't managed since high school. Later that night, she dropped to the carpet of her small apartment and tried a push-up. The first attempt collapsed with her face pressed against the floor. But she tried again, gritting her teeth. This time, her arms locked straight, supporting her trembling body for a second before she lowered herself. "Ha!" she shouted into the empty room, half laughing, half crying. She bought a small notebook and wrote on the first page. 1 mile without stopping. 1 push-up. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Chapter 4. The Community of Strangers. As weeks passed, the gym became less intimidating. She began noticing the people around her, not as competitors, but as quiet companions. There was the man with neon green shoes who always sprinted at dawn. The older woman who stretched with graceful determination, humming softly to herself. A young couple who giggled between sets, encouraging each other. And then there was the tall trainer. He rarely spoke, but every time Maya struggled through a set, he gave her a small nod. Not approval, not pity, just acknowledgement. One morning, as she left the treadmill, the older woman caught her eye and smiled. A simple gesture, but it felt like a welcome. For the first time, Maya felt like she wasn't fighting alone. Chapter 5. Breaking Point. The honeymoon ended in her 3rd month. It started with soreness. A dull ache in her quads that never seemed to fade. Then exhaustion, mornings where her alarm screamed but her body refused to move. At work, she dozed at her desk. At home, she collapsed without dinner. Still, she dragged herself back to the gym. One night, as she set up for squats, her legs buckled halfway through. The bar clanged against the safety rack, echoing across the weight floor. Heads turned. Her face burned. "Damn it," she muttered, shoving the bar back. Her hands trembled as she racked the weights. The shame hit harder than the failure itself. She left early, stomping into the night air. Cold wind slapped her cheeks, mixing with the sting of tears. "What am I doing?" She thought. I'm not strong. I'll never be like them. Back home, she tossed her gym bag into the corner and collapsed onto her bed. She stared at the ceiling until her eyes blurred. She almost didn't open her notebook. But something in her, stubbornness, maybe, made her flip it open. The first page stared back at her. 1 mile without stopping. 1 push-up. She traced the words with her finger. Proof. She had started from nothing, and she had gotten somewhere. Maybe this was just part of the journey. Maybe strength wasn't only about lifting weight, it was about carrying herself through days like this. She closed the notebook and whispered into the quiet, "Tomorrow, I'll try again." Chapter 6, The Mentor. The next morning, Maya almost turned around when she saw the tall trainer walking toward her. She braced herself for criticism, but instead, his tone was kind. "I've seen you here a lot," he said. "You're putting in work. That's good." She gave a small, nervous laugh. "Feels like I'm failing half the time." "That's normal," he replied with a shrug. "Progress isn't about never failing. It's about showing up again." He gestured toward the squat rack. "Want me to check your form?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. As he guided her, adjusting her stance, correcting the tilt of her back, everything suddenly felt smoother. The pain in her knees eased. She finished the set, breathless but not broken. "See," he said, smiling faintly. "You're stronger than you think. You just needed a little direction." Something inside her shifted that day. Until then, she had been fumbling in the dark. But with guidance, she realized she wasn't as helpless as she thought. When she left the gym that night, her steps felt lighter. The barbell hadn't just tested her muscles, it had tested her belief in herself. And for the first time, she felt like she might actually pass. Chapter 7, The Mirror Changes. Winter crept in quietly, frosting the gym windows and filling the air with the smell of damp coats and coffee from the small vending machine near the lobby. Maya had now been coming for 6 months. Her reflection in the mirrors had changed in ways she hadn't expected. At first, she looked for obvious differences: flatter stomach, slimmer arms, toned legs. But what struck her most was not the size of her body but the way she carried it. She stood taller. Her shoulders were no longer slouched but squared. Her eyes looked sharper, alive. One evening, as she wiped sweat from her forehead after finishing 3 miles on the treadmill, she caught her reflection mid-stride. Hair messy, cheeks flushed, shirt damp with sweat. And yet, she was smiling. Not because she had achieved some picture-perfect image, but because she could feel the strength in her lungs, in her legs, in her heartbeat. She touched the mirror gently, whispering, "I'm proud of you." And this time, she meant it. Chapter 8, Challenges Outside the Gym. The gym wasn't the only test. Her job demanded long hours as the year closed, reports stacking high, her boss pressing harder. Her sister needed help babysitting on weekends. Friends invited her to dinners and late-night outings. The temptation to skip the gym was constant. Some weeks, she did. Once, she missed 3 days in a row and felt guilt gnaw at her like hunger. But instead of quitting, Maya learned to adapt. Sometimes she woke before dawn, dragging herself out of bed to squeeze in 20 minutes on the treadmill. Sometimes she swapped long workouts for shorter, focused ones. She learned that perfection wasn't required. Persistence was. The discipline she built in the gym began to spill into her life. She found herself saying no when she needed rest. She organized her workdays better. She ate not just to fill her stomach but to fuel her energy. Strength, she realized, wasn't just about deadlifts or miles run. It was about carrying herself through the chaos of life without dropping the weight of her own well-being. Chapter 9, The Test of Strength. One morning, a bright poster caught her eye near the entrance. Iron House Community Challenge, all levels welcome. The event was a mix of running, push-ups, and weightlifting, a test of endurance and strength. Maya froze. A year ago, she wouldn't have even considered it. Now, her heart raced with something between fear and excitement. She almost tore the sign down, convincing herself she wasn't ready. But then she opened her notebook that night. The pages were filled now, mile times, weight records, notes like first time doing 10 push-ups in a row and benched 50 pounds today. She signed up. The day of the challenge, the gym buzzed with energy. Music thumped, people clapped for each other. Trainers shouted encouragement. Maya lined up with trembling hands, sweat already dampening her palms. The run came first. She pushed through, lungs burning but refusing to stop. Then the push-ups, her arms quivered, but she remembered that first night on her living room carpet. Now she did 10, 15, 20. Finally, the weights. She gripped the bar, her mentor's words echoing in her head, "You're stronger than you think." She lifted, slowly, surely. When it was over, she collapsed onto the mat, gasping. She hadn't won. But when the applause rang out and someone clapped her shoulder saying, "Great job," she realized she had achieved something greater. She wasn't competing against them. She had been competing against herself. And she had won. Chapter 10, The Key. It was a quiet Thursday evening when the trainer approached her at the front desk. "Maya," he said, handing her a small envelope. Inside was a sleek black membership key tag, engraved with the Ironhouse logo. "You've been one of our most consistent members this year," he said with a smile. "This is just a small acknowledgement." Maya held the tag in her hand, turning it over. Months ago, when she had first walked through those doors, her original key had felt like a burden, an entry to a place where she didn't belong. But this one felt different. It wasn't just a pass to the gym. It was proof. Proof that she had shown up, again and again. Proof that she had pushed past her doubts, her soreness, her insecurities. Proof that she had built strength, not just in her muscles, but in her will. As she stepped outside into the cool night air, she clenched the key tightly in her fist. This wasn't the end of her journey. It was just the beginning. There would be new doors, new challenges, new battles. And now, she had the strength to unlock them all.